All right, so we'll just start with setting our motivation. So if you want to get yourself into a contemplative headspace, we'll go ahead and start. Sangye churan sogi chunam noe janchu padu dani kapsuchi dagi chunyan gi pe sonam ki drola penche sangye drupa sho sangye churan sogi chunam no janchu padu dani kapsuchi dagi chunyan gi pe sonam ki Drola penche sange drupa sho. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Okay. So we're gonna start with White Tara meditation. So I know we haven't talked about White Tara very much, but we will. Let's start with a short, just really gentle White Tara meditation and then talk about her a little bit. And then we might have time to do a slightly different one at the end, depending on your questions. So if you want to get yourself a good meditation posture, we'll just dig right into it. Nice straight back. Few deep intentional breaths, getting yourself to settle. And so we'll start this very short White Tara meditation. Start by just reconnecting with refuge and bodhicitta in your heart. We've just said it out loud. Now repeat it in your mind. What am I taking refuge in? What am I taking refuge from? To what aim and how? Let yourself engage with the prayer for a moment. And however much you're able to touch refuge and bodhicitta, make sure you really deeply think, I'm doing this practice not just for myself, but in order to benefit all sentient beings. May these positive practices have a ripple effect. And then visualize White Tara above your head or in front of you at the level of your forehead. Just take a moment and imagine her very present here. And you can choose whether she goes in front or goes above your crown. She's radiant white, made of transparent light, seated in the Vajra posture. One face, two arms, 6 eyes. Embodying health and vitality, the speller of sickness illnesses, both mental and physical, environmental, situational. And visualize long life nectar coming from Tara's heart. This blissful white nectar enters your crown and completely fills your body. Feel strongly and concentrate clearly that all your sicknesses, spirit harms, negative karmas, and obscurations are completely purified. And holding that visualization, add the mantra. Om Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punya Jana Pushtum Kuruye Soha. Om Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punya Jana Pushtum Kuruye Soha. Om Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punya Jana Pushtum Kuruye Soha. Om Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtim Kuri Soha. Om Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtim Kuri Soha. Om Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtim Kuri Soha. Om Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punya Jana Pushtum Kure Soha. Om Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punya Jana Pushtum Kure Soha. Om Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punya Jana Pushtum Kure Soha. And continue the mantra under your breath, together with the visualization. Om Tare Ture Mama Aya Punyanjana Pushtam Kuriye Soha. Om Tare Tutare Ture Mama Ayu Punya Jana Pushtam Kuriye Soha. So feel strongly that your life has been increased, your merit developed, your scriptural understanding and wisdom increased, and that you've achieved the realization of immortality. Tara dissolves into light and absorbs into you, stabilizing those blessings and that healing. And dedicate the merit to achieve the state of Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. And you can relax your attention. Okay. So there is a lot of white Tara practices that you can do. The next one up is actually quite extensive and quite long, and it has layers of visualization, layers of mantra, and it's fairly elaborate for a Kriya Tantra practice, and that's why Tara Wish Fulfilling Wheel. And that one is really beautiful. So if you have the white Tara empowerment, I really recommend downloading that one because it's really beautiful and it's got all these wonderful layers of protection. So I thought I would just give you a short rundown of white Tara and then just see what comes up, see what questions you have or what ideas develop. So here we go. We're on chapter 4 still. And the section about white Tara specifically is fairly short, and it's basically because it's variations on a theme. So Rinpoche says, white Tara resembles green Tara in most aspects, besides, of course, that her color is white, symbolizing having overcome the two obscurations. So the two obscurations are the obscurations of knowledge. Those knowledge obscurations are sometimes called obscurations to omniscience, and then also the obscurations of afflictions or afflictive obscurations. So those are removed quite a ways down the path. When we were talking about the 5 paths, those are removed on the path of meditation. Then she has 7 eyes, the third eye on her face in the middle of her forehead, and one on each of her palms and on the soles of her feet. These symbolize her realizations of the 3 doors of liberation: emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness, and the realization of the 4 immeasurable thoughts: loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Unlike green Tara, who has her right leg extended, white Tara sits in the full Vajra posture. So if you're not familiar with that framing of the 3 doors of liberation, the footnote really helps. So there are many interpretations of these 3 words, and this framing of the 3 doors of liberation will come about in all sorts of different Buddhist schools. But the common one is that emptiness refers to the lack of inherent nature. Signlessness is the lack of inherent cause, and wishlessness is the lack of inherent production. So nothing has an inherent nature. Everything's nature is dependently arisen. Nothing has an inherent cause. All causes are dependently arisen. And there is no inherently produced thing. All production, all causation, everything is dependently arisen. So it's just 3 different angles, variations of a theme, and these 3 doors of liberation are an interesting teaching. So if you're ever looking for an interesting emptiness talk, emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness is a nice one to dig into. But her first 3 eyes, her regular eyes and her third eye, those are the 3 doors of liberation. She's realized those. And then the 2 on her hands and the 2 on her feet, these are the 4 immeasurable thoughts. So the 4 immeasurable thoughts are also pervasive teachings that you'll find in all schools of Buddhism, but what they're emphasizing and what they're directing to will vary. They can also relate to the 4 jhanic states. So these 4 will keep popping up again and again, but even as a basic secular idea, their importance is pretty obvious, I think. So she's related to long life deities, right? White Tara is one of the long life deities. The other 2 in our tradition we see a lot are Amitayus and Namgyalma. So this is from Rinpoche. He says, although we all have a certain lifespan determined by the karma created in previous lives, that lifespan can be cut short through the ripening of negative imprints caused by having committed a heavy negative action motivated by self-cherishing or one of the other delusions. So this creates an obstacle to our life, which can result in death. We would call that untimely death. Reciting the mantra of white Tara is especially effective for eliminating life obstacles, helping us to have a long life. It's also a powerful healing mantra. However, as I've mentioned, if the motivation is only for relief from this temporal suffering and to enjoy this life's pleasures, the recitation does not become virtuous, even though it may help alleviate immediate problems. Along with the practices of Nam Gelma and others that help us to have a long life, white Tara practice is considered very effective when we liberate animals. So prolonging the lives of the animals by saving their lives naturally prolongs our own life. So these three, Nam Gelma, Amitayas, white Tara, these are our three main long life deities. And all of their mantras are very good also at the time of death to help create powerful conditions for yourself or whoever is the dying person or dying animal to connect with their previously created positive karma to have a positive rebirth. So these are wonderful practices to have in your life. So her mantra is basically the same as the green Tara mantra. It just has a few extra syllables. So Om Tare Tu Tare Ture is the same. Then we have Mama Arya Punye Jana Pushtim Kuru Soha. And those extra syllables are making it what's called an increase mantra, and it's increasing life, merit, and wisdom. And at the center is the seed syllable tam in the practices that describe the seed syllable. So the longer versions of the practice will say the seed syllable tam, often where Tara arises from. So meditational deities such as Tara each have their own particular seed syllable, a single sound that expresses their essence. For all forms of Tara, the seed syllable is tam, so pronounced tam like with more aspiration. These syllables, written as a single letter or stack of letters in Tibetan, are viewed as representations of the deity and as living expressions of the wisdom and energy of the divine that the deity transmits. So as David Schneider states in his excellent article, Sacred Seeds, just as the seed of a plant contains the whole plant, so a seed syllable concentrates everything characteristic of an enlightened energy. He goes on to say, letters were seen as an intermediary step between the ineffable majesty of the divine and more elaborated rituals. The divine rustled itself into form, first through sound and then letter, only later taking iconographical shape and story. Thus, the seed syllable tam contains the entire essence of Tara, her wisdom, her compassion, her protection from all fears and dangers, and her enlightened activities, all condensed and available to you through the sound or image of tam. So Om Tare Tu Tare Ture we talked about in depth a couple days ago or last week. The mama means myself. So to increase your own lifespan, merit, and wisdom, yourself. But if you're doing it for your teacher, instead of mama, you say guru. So Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Guru Arya Punyanjana Pushtum Kuru Soha. Arya is lifespan, Punye is merit, Jana is wisdom, Pushtum is to increase, Kuru Soha, may this come about. Okay, so this kind of brings us to an interesting idea of wishing for our teachers to have long life or requesting our teachers to have long life. This is a concept that gets shown in a lot of different areas in a lot of sadhanas. Even just the 7-limb prayer, there's a request to stay and a request to teach. And you might think, don't the gurus already want to stay? Don't they already want to teach? Why are we asking them to do what they're already up to? Why would we pray for the long life of our teachers? How can we have any influence on that? And also, if they could choose to live long, wouldn't they just do that? Why do they need us to ask? These are the sort of questions that might arise, I'm guessing. So part of these things, the request to stay or the request to teach or the request for the Lama to have a long life is about you. It's not about them. It's about you creating the cause to see them, you creating the cause to experience teachings. So it's said that the Buddhas will remain in human form teaching us as long as we continue to request them to do so. So we need to request them to do so. Okay. So it kind of follows along with this whole not being missionaries, not proselytizing vibe that we have in Buddhism. But I think there's something very engaging, very empowering about thinking, if I want a teaching, I need to ask for it. If I want the holy beings to be in my face, to be in my life, to be present for me, I need to say so. I have to speak up. There's something really interesting about the psychology of that. Because when you're saying, I want this, please may this be, you become immediately receptive and engaged in a much different way than if you're kind of passively walking along, decide to go to a teaching randomly, sit in the back, passively with your arms crossed. This may or may not apply to me. It's a general talk, passively leave before it's even done, and just kind of like, is it entertaining or not? That's my criteria for staying. When you're sort of passive about the spiritual path, it can't go in. But if you've thought, I've requested this teaching, you lean into it much differently. And when you think I'm continuously requesting teachings and I'm continuously requesting the teacher to stay, again, there's an engagement and a dynamic that's established that's a lot more powerful. So from a karmic perspective, you're creating the cause. Yeah. But in terms of the psychology of it, it immediately opens you up and makes you a much better student, right? A student and a practitioner, a lot more engaged. So these prayers should never be lip service, and these practices don't get weird and think, oh, I haven't been asking my teacher to live long and that's why he's dying. Like, don't get weird, okay? Don't get like superstitious. They're going to show the aspect of a certain lifespan, and they're probably not going to get into a kind of Lazarus sort of Nagarjuna situation where they're going to live for 400 years, because that's going to weird people out and the news crews will come and it'll make it too much chaos to study Dharma. So our teachers are probably not going to live more than 100 years, but we want them to live as long as they possibly can. Because when they die, even when we find them again, we have to wait for them to grow up. It takes ages, right? So annoying. So, the little ones, they come out with some amazing goods, but still it's like, 10, 20 years. So we want them to last a long time in this form that we've engaged with. And so we keep making requests. There's a lot of things that create the cause for the Lama to show the aspect of long life. One is to ask, one is to do White Tara practices. Another is to just keep the promises that you've made. Yeah, if you've made promises to your teachers, keep them. It is like a continuous way of building the momentum between you and the connection between you. So they're never going to leave you. It's just that by you not keeping your promises, it's like you're leaving them. Yeah, they're never leaving you, but you're kind of leaving them. The tether gets frayed, kind of energetically speaking. It's never a lost cause. Don't get heavy about it, but really do feel like I need to keep reaching back for the connection to be strong. Does it make sense? Yeah. So you can do this practice for yourself. You can do this practice for your Lama to show the aspect of long life. A lot of long life pujas have White Tara as their basis, or Namgyalma as their basis, or just like it's Guru Puja with a bunch of mantras related to long life deities. That's more common in our tradition. So you'll see these kinds of things a lot, but you can also use White Tara for your friends and family who are unwell. So particularly people that you have a strong karmic connection with, you're a strong condition for. So if you're linking to White Tara and then linking to them, it's like you're linking them to White Tara in a much stronger way than if some monks and nuns in Nepal are praying for them, but they haven't ever met them and they don't have the same karmic connection with them. Still has benefit because they're directing their attention that way, but because you have a strong connection, it might wind up being very powerful. Yeah, so the strength of your karmic connection, of course, the strength of yourself as a practitioner, your, repeated practice adds depth. All these things play a part. But even if you don't practice white Tara very often and you know someone is really unwell, doing this for them can sometimes be a really huge benefit. They still need to have created the cause themselves, but it's like you're bringing the water and the sunshine. Does that make sense? So a lot of this is tricky karma things, because whenever you're thinking, I'm praying for someone, it brings up all of our old baggage, or it makes it sound like the teachings on karma are suddenly put aside, because we learn when we learn about karma that karma is individual and you can't transfer karma. You can't take anyone's karma. You can't experience someone else's karma. It's your own karma on this mental continuum. That's what you experience. Yep. And then suddenly you're praying for someone to have this or that happen, and it feels really bizarre. So what you are is a condition, not a cause. Yeah. And then adding a practice like this makes a powerful condition.
So they've made their own cause, and you're just providing a condition for change.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So if they never created the cause, it doesn't really matter what we do, but because of beginningless time, there's bound to be a seed there that you can be watering somehow for them, if there's some kind of receptivity that they have, especially if you have a strong karmic connection. I think sometimes what can happen is us doing the practice, the first benefit is that we settle down and we reconnect to our refuge and we reconnect to our tantric path. And that already makes better conditions for the people around us already. And then by bringing in some sort of connection to the divine, it elevates it. But even just shamatha is going to make you a more powerful condition for the people around you. You know, everything that you're doing in your practice does have an impact. You are a condition for people no matter what you do. So it's kind of choosing to be the kind of condition you want to be. Yeah. And of course, you know, the danger is getting codependent, and the danger is kind of micromanaging things. And, you know, remember that karma is more subtle than emptiness. It's extremely hidden phenomena. So you do your best to be a good karmic influence while knowing there's so many other influences that you don't have control over, that you want to also be having a good, relaxed, letting go mind at the same time. Yep. From the chat, it says, I feel that I have created the karma to not be able to see some of my teachers in person. Obstacles have arisen to prevent in-person teachings from happening. What kind of causes could I try to purify? Could it be some of what you described, like breaking vows made to the guru in past lives, or something else? Yeah, definitely breaking vows to the guru would be related to not seeing them as often or as in person as you would like. The Wheel of Sharp Weapons can be quite confronting to read, but it goes through a lot of those details of when this happens, it's from this. When this happens, it's from that. And there are sutras on karma as well. But generally speaking, difficulty in accessing Dharma resources is because you have had Dharma resources in the past and put them aside, and procrastinated and put them off, or disrespected them, or decided that they weren't important. You created distance between yourself and your Dharma supports. And so the distance continues. Even though now you're like, oh, I'm ready now. You know, it's sort of like you've created the cause for it to be lower on the priority list. So there needs to be some purification of that. And then it might be that you get closer and closer access to the teachers and the teachings. Yeah. But I mean, just logistically too, don't be passive. You know, some people never take holidays except for Dharma holidays to go see their teachers, you know, and that's one choice a person could make. You know, it's a choice a person could make. And pretty much all the traveling I've done in the last 20 years has been Dharma related. And then it's nice to see a cool place, but I mean, everywhere has cool places, everywhere has cool history, everywhere has cool architecture, everywhere has cool nature. Like, you know, when you've traveled enough, you're like, it's just variations on a theme, like, let's get on with it, you know? So it's also just being practical and prioritizing how you spend your money. And, you know, Dharma things are gonna be deep and stay with you. Holiday experiences come and go, you know, so kind of being strategic that way. Yes, Nate, go ahead.
when you were saying, that we can do the White Tara mantra for people that we are close to. So would I substitute the name? Like where you said you substitute the guru's name, would I put their name in there?
Some people do. Some people just think the mama, that word refers to that person.
Okay.
There's a more extended version where you kind of place them in Amitayas's vase and the nectars go in that way. There's a lot of Amitayas with White Tara practices that go together. And some of that is hooking back lost vitality and then giving it to whoever you're visualizing, either at your heart or Amitayas's heart, who's then at the heart of Tara. It gets very layered, but there are lots of layers. But if you're just wanting to do very simply, we'll do the very simple version for people who are sick at the end of the session. So, and that's the one that's in the chapter. It's just like a paragraph long. It's so simple, but really can be quite powerful.
Okay. And the other question I wanted to ask you is, when we're visualizing the nectar purifying, so I think a couple of weeks ago, you explained really clearly about purifying karma, using the 4 opponent powers, and I get that. So I'm wondering, like here where, we have nectar from deities purifying us, is that also come with an understanding of the 4 opponent powers?
It depends on what you're emphasizing in the practice. So what the nectar and light and mantras are is the power of remedy. Yeah, they're the power of remedy. You did the power of refuge already earlier in the text. So if you want to generate the power of regret briefly, or while you're visualizing, you can do it simultaneously, right? So if you're feeling like you've got enough mental space for Tara's nectar, Tara's mantra, and then the power of regret of, okay, all actions of killing, all actions of, resource misuse, all the things related to sickness, I'm really genuinely generating a mind of regret. Yeah. And then at the end, just a very quick power of resolve before you dissolve and absorb Tara into you. So if you want it to be a full-fledged thing, add the power of regret and the power of resolve. Without those two, it's still very powerful. It's still a really good remedy. Yeah.
It is a remedy because I'm reciting something wholesome, because I always think like the remedy should be like me making some change in my way of thinking and habit. So I always think like, how is just visualizing nectars? I mean, it's very, very soothing, I find, but I wonder like, what am I actually changing about me?
And that's where the power of resolve, I think, can really help you out. So when you're thinking, okay, in future, here's the change. So the remedy is just kind of clearing the energy of the habit, interrupting the energy of the habit, and also, just really genuinely doing a kind of a energetic blast of all of those negative karmic seeds. So if you're, wanting to change the pattern, you have to decide to change the pattern. So in the power of resolve, you really do have to think, okay, what are my habits of killing? Because that is why I get sick. That is why I might have a shortened life. What have been the ways I've been careless with life in this life? Like, I don't know, you went fishing as a kid, or you used to shoot grasshoppers with your BB gun, or, pick wings off flies, or put down your pets with the greatest of compassion, but still, that it was not the ideal, whatever killing things you've done. And just really own it for a minute without slipping into a whole justification excuse story. Just be like, yep, that's not my path. Okay, tomorrow when I clean the kitchen, I'm going to be careful of the ants. Just really finite, really practical, really specific. And it does start to change the tide. But you do have to be really personal and specific, and don't say, I'll never do that again if you're not sure. You might say, I will never go fishing again in this life, and you can say that, but are there little habits of my life is more important that you really couldn't make a promise about? So don't lie to yourself, don't lie to the Buddhas, just gently.
Thank you.
Yeah. So taking life and misappropriation of resources are usually the causes for sickness. Yeah, so resources that belong to a community, to a religious community, to your family, that were shared in common, but you took for granted, you know, things that you borrowed but didn't give back, and then just really obvious stealing. But everything kind of stealing adjacent, yeah, also can make it like your food doesn't have the life force that you want it to. You know, sometimes that happens. You're eating good food, but it doesn't have any oomph, or it doesn't digest properly. You know, like go to the doctor, but also purify, you know, practical and cosmic at the same time. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that sometimes we can be lost for, what did I get up to? What might I have gotten up to? Because you're a fairly nice person staying out of trouble. So, you know, reading a sutra on karma or reading the Wheel of Sharp Weapons, sometimes you can go, that sounds like something I might have done in a past life, whether I'm still doing it or not. That kind of sounds like me. I could see myself doing that. All right, let's just assume. Right. Yeah. Yeah. From the chat. I wonder if it's good to recite when eating meat. Yeah, Tara mantra is good if you still eat meat. Medicine Buddha mantra is good if you're still eating meat. You say it a few times and then blow on the meat and think that the consciousness that is now departed but used to inhabit that meat, may it have a perfect human rebirth, meet with Mahayana spiritual teachers, or be reborn in a pure land, but make really positive aspirations for that animal. Yeah, so white Tara is good and Medicine Buddha is good. Say it a few times, blow on the meat. And, you know, with all of these habits, right, we want to just be really practical about all forms of consumption. Yeah, it's like all forms of consumption, not just food. Are we relating to it as medicine to support our practice? Or is it feeding the beast of attachment? And it's so difficult because we need food genuinely, and food can be a source of attachment. So it's not like you can say, stop eating food. Please don't stop eating food. And it might be that you have the kind of constitution that does need to eat meat, but do you need to eat meat as often? You know, and can you be careful about the sources and, you know, gently have less and stuff like that. But, you know, just the same with your clothes, and where do they come from, and your coffee, where does it come from? And, you know, just being kind of aware of consumption can help minimize the negative karma related to consuming. Yeah, and, you know, don't get uptight about it, but do be intentional. Yeah.
Thank you. I was just thinking about the logistics of not being able to get near where teachers are. Like everything is on, for me anyway, everything is online.
Yeah.
You know, so the karma for that, that's, you know, that's good karma, I would imagine. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a good question. Is it good karma or bad karma? You've got the karma to meet all sorts of teachings right the click of a button and not in person. I mean, really, it's really about your perspective a lot of the time too. Is it causing suffering? Then it's not negative karma ripening. If it's causing happiness, it's positive karma ripening. So having easy access to all of these teachings, I think really is amazing karma ripening. You know, and the pandemic has had a lot of problems, but like that's been kind of the blessing of the pandemic, isn't it? Is that so many things have gone online. So if you're really thinking in that way, then it helps create more of that. But it probably means in the past you've done things like published a lot of texts or supported people writing important Dharma texts, like you were a benefactor for someone who was writing a commentary or translating something, or you were a benefactor of a Dharma center, or you know, just gave people rides to Dharma talks, you know, on your yak or whatever lifetime it was that you were driving, you know, you're like, yeah, let's all get in the cart, let's go to the Dharma class, you know. So you helped people connect with teachings. Now you're having easy access to teachings. So that's nice to think about, that we were helpful in the past. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And I mean, whatever wonderful things are happening in our life, think I need to keep creating the causes, because you're reaping the benefit of your past. Are you creating the same for the future, or are you just kind of draining the tank? You know, so that's a really important question for us, is that whoever we were before gave us an amazing legacy. What is the Lord giving to our future self? Is it more of the same? Is it, you know, is it better or is it worse? And just really engage in that way. Like, what am I offering to myself? So, just keep grounded and just think, right now you've got amazing conditions, so use them well, and create more of the same, but just really like, may I use them well? Because they could also end anytime. We don't know how many karmic seeds of this type we've created.
Exactly.
I mean, like I really took it for granted that I had teachings all day, every day for about 7 years straight. I thought that would just be my life. And then when my teacher died, I would just go into retreat and get enlightened. Done. And, so 7 years straight of teachings all day, every day, or retreat, it was amazing. But then suddenly my teacher got appointed to be the abbot of Gyumé Tantra College. And we were all like, oh, crap. Okay. Right. Okay. It was a big assumption that it would be all the way, until his death that we would have that. And, it made me wish I had paid attention more. And it made me wish I had, not taken it for granted and not wasted time with, whatever like petty emotional issues or angst or laziness or whatever, that I'd really done a deep dive at that point. And, so really make sure that you're not assuming this will be the way it always will be, because things can change in a minute, so I'm trying to, nowadays trying to think of every teaching of, what if this is the last time I get to be with this teacher? What if this is the last time I get to hear these things? What questions do I need to ask? What ways do I need to build depth and really be really present with it? And, and I think our own suffering can help fuel our compassion for other people, because when you feel separated from your teacher or separated from your community, it gives you way more energy to then think, all right, when there is a big Lama coming to town or a big retreat, how can I make sure that as many people as possible who want a connection can make that connection, So just don't take anything for granted. Yeah. Okay, so the mantra is pretty straightforward. Like, life, merit, wisdom, may it increase. Yeah, life, merit, wisdom, may it increase, but there's some details that are kind of useful to look at. So these are from Venerable Thupten Chodron, who I think a lot of you know. She says, you can think about the meaning of that mantra while you're saying it. Side note is, but you don't have to. But really feel like your lifespan is increasing. We're increasing your karmic lifespan, and especially removing any kind of karma that would cause untimely death. So they say that death comes about either because the karmically given lifespan that was with us when we were born either has run out, or we have untimely karma that ripens, or we just run out of merit. So, we have a certain amount of lifespan that is projected at our birth, the seed that launched this life. Lots of seeds for untimely death, be hit by a bus, get an illness, whatever. You can purify those to live out your full lifespan. But there's also other ways you can run out of merit, like if you spend years and years of your life boiling with hatred, that burns so much merit that it might result in an untimely death. So there's different things that can make you have a shortened lifespan than you would have otherwise. So then punya is increasing our merit. So not just the merit to have long life, because that's just this lifetime. The reason we want a long life, by the way, isn't just because we don't want to die. It's because we want to practice the Dharma. So everybody doesn't want to die, but we should have a better motivation than that. It's for our Dharma practice. So punya means increasing our merit, because to gain realizations, we need a lot of merit. Then jhana is wisdom, the collection of merit, the collection of wisdom specifically. We need both of those. Then pushta, may it increase. So you can contemplate that these three are increasing. So whenever you're doing long life practice, if you can think, the point of the long life is to practice the Dharma. You have a certain momentum, you have a certain amount of knowledge, you have a certain practice in this life. And when you die, say everything comes together really beautifully and you get another perfect human rebirth, it's going to take a while for you to warm up again, even if you meet with amazing conditions. So what you want is your practice to be so solid that it's very easy for you to pick up where you left off in your next life, and to not kind of backslide too much or at all. So a long life means more time to do the practices that you've learned in this life. It's not that living a long time is good in and of itself, right? It's in order to practice. So if you're thinking about your practice right now, if you were to die right now, and then you were reborn and you grew up and you were a little kid and you came across the Dharma, what would your immediate reaction be? Would it be, oh God, this is going to be really, really hard, oh, really stressful, maybe I'll wait? Or will it be, oh, that was the thing that really helped open me, yay, yay, that. What's our approach to the Dharma right now? Because that's a lot of what we're going to bring to our future life. When we meet Buddhist things, is it going to trigger delight and anticipation and joy and yearning? Or is it going to trigger a bit of like heaviness and pressure? And, so it's really important to ask ourselves, are we meeting our practice with a joyful mind? If we're starting to think of it like a chore, something needs to ease off, or something needs to get more inspired, something needs to shift. So don't like white knuckle it, right? Because that's not going to come in handy the next time around. Keep a happy mind. And then there was a question in the chat, is there any relationship here with a healthy life? It might be worse to have a long-term disabling illness such as Alzheimer's, where it might be really challenging to practice. Do these practices help? Yeah, absolutely. This practice helps not just for long life, but for health. Yeah, you want a healthy long life, not just a generic long life or one filled with illness. For things like Alzheimer's specifically and dementia, it's good to have Manjushri practice also. Manjushri particularly does help with memory. For all forms of illness, medicine Buddha, but you don't have to overload yourself. Everything can work with one practice. It's just kind of knowing that if you've got a predisposition in your family, maybe focus on things that are going to clear that specific illness that you're worried that you might have if you have a long life. Yeah, it's a good point, because just living long doesn't guarantee practice, for sure. So in the longer version of the practice, you'll see circles of the mantra. So not just the little center one, which is the classic, but you'll also see Nagarjuna's method for purifying the speech. It includes the same syllables as in the additional mantra garlands in the White Tara Chinna Chakra practice, or wish fulfilling wheel practice. So those additional syllables are just adding more power and more purification. So just to make it really simple, you've got the main mantra in the center, and then you've got purifying body, purifying speech, purifying mind in concentric circles outward. And this is what I mean when this practice actually can get more elaborate than most lower Tantra sadhanas, because here's what it looks like in color. And if you continue the practice, then you add these colored rings of light, which are layers of protection. So peace, increase, power, and wrath, like we talked about with the 21 taras, plus enlightened activity, plus stability of actions and attainment. So it's a lot, right? There's a lot happening there. So in the middle, you've got, may life, wisdom, and merit increase. And then may body be purified, speech be purified, mind be purified. And then there's that Vajra fence, that larger blue circle. And then outside of that, you either think you as Tara, if you have the empowerment, or Tara above your crown, sends out rings of protection light. And the first ring brings pacification or peacefulness in all of your inner and outer life. And that's the white ring. It's very skinny. Yeah, and then after the white ring is increase, which is that very skinny yellow ring. So increasing all of the blessings, all of the realizations. Then you have red, so that's power, or magnification, or magnetizing, or controlling, but only from a positive perspective. So this is like good influence. Yeah, good influences. Then wrath is the dark blue. And so this is the appearance of fierceness, but not at all angry. So when fierceness and strength are needed, you have protection to be able to have your mind do that without it going in an afflicted way. And also it's protection from negative influences coming from the outside. And then you have enlightened activity, which is represented by the green ring. So enlightened activity like regular green Tara, so swift action to swiftly bring about positive practice. And then the last layer is brown. Sometimes it's depicted as like hot pink. That last layer has different colors, but usually it's brown. It's brown in the sadhana, and that represents stability of the actions and attainments. So basically stabilizing everything else. So it's a lot going on. And if you have the empowerment, you're at the center as Tara with these from your heart radiating out. If you don't have the empowerment, it's from the Tara at your crown with those things radiating out. So that's interesting for those of you that maybe have done that longer version of the practice. If you haven't, it's just interesting to know that there is layers of visualization with white Tara that can be really very nurturing and stabilizing, especially if your outer life has a lot of chaos in it. You know, especially if there's people who are really not being kind or who are actively aggressive towards you, or there are things in your life that are making your health harder, it can help with those conditions. Like say you live somewhere that's very polluted, or you live somewhere where it's hard to get healthy food, like it's a long drive to the grocery store, or, you know, there's just outer influences that make health hard. This can really help protect you from those negative influences and hold the vitality and strength of your practice to you. So that's a nice benefit of the longer practice. So I know that was a lot quickly, and this concept of peace, increase, power, and wrath, this concept, we talked about it briefly with the 21 Taras, that they're kind of grouped. The white ones are peace, and the yellow ones are increase, and the red ones are power, and the black ones are wrath. Generally speaking, that's a way to categorize the 21 Taras, but that framing of those 4 activities is something you're going to see repeated in Tantra all over the place. So they're called like the divine actions, or ways of being that an enlightened being can kind of manifest in order to benefit sentient beings. So to make it ordinary, think of them as skill sets or tools. Yeah, you have the ability to pacify. That means you have the ability to bring harmony and subdue agitation, really smoothing things out. Yeah. The power of increase means whatever is there, you can help increase it. And there's a general feeling of abundance and resources. The control or the power one is like magnetizing influence that makes people excited about your good projects and want to support them, for example. Or when you have something important to say, you have the impact that you want to have. So it's all from a positive perspective, but I'm sure we've all had that experience where we have something important to say, no one cares. Right? It would be nice to have magnetizing karma to be able to have our important statement land, be understood and responded to, right? And then very, very occasionally, wrath is needed. And to have wrath in a way that is in no way going to harm anyone, but is going to intimidate negative states of mind. Yeah, and the example I always think about with wrath is a little bit how a very, very skilled dog trainer can adopt a position of authority very quietly without shouting and just do a few small gestures towards the dog, and it immediately subdues and like wags its tail and is like totally happy. Whereas if the trainer is angry and fierce and yelling and hurts the dog might subdue, but it's going to have fear and tension and rage and probably lash out later. So wrath is not to harm anyone or anything. It's a position of dominance and strength, but for the benefit of someone else to subdue their negative states of mind. And so it's very, very delicate to use, and something that we really shouldn't think we're able to use until our anger is really, really under control. Yeah, because it's very easy for wrath to turn into anger. Yeah. So, see, a question from the chat. Can we acquire these skill sets before the path of seeing in this lifetime? I think we're starting to build them just with the practices themselves. To have them fully realized, you need to be enlightened. But it's often the case during the empowerment where there'll be the stick drop. Can you picture the stick drop part of a long initiation? And it goes, goes flunk, and the Lama will say, oh, pacifying. Yeah, that usually is indicating that whoever dropped the stick and everyone that they are representing, when they do that practice, it's going to lead to that attainment more swiftly. So that's it's cool and interesting information. It's kind of like a prophecy in a way, like when you do this practice, it's going to have this particular power more quickly. So it'll have impact even before you're enlightened, but it won't be perfected until you're fully enlightened. Yeah, other questions before we have a stretch? Okay, 5-minute break. So I thought we would do the meditation that is good for people who are ill. So if you don't have anyone ill or unwell in your life that you want to do prayers for, we can just think that we're doing it for everyone in Ukraine or wherever. Yeah. So before we start, just kind of think to yourself, all right, who's someone that I really want to direct this healing energy, this life-giving energy to? And it can be a pet. It could be someone who's not ill, but they're a little bit old, or just anybody in your life. Just take a minute and choose somebody. And think, may their long and healthy life result in deep spiritual practice, and may the karmic connection between us be positive and supportive for the spiritual path. And so visualize them. You can imagine them seated or laying down, but try and really imagine the person that you're doing this practice for, the sort of clothes and colors they would normally wear, the way their hair usually is, a neutral or pleasant expression on their face. And then visualize white Tara above them. Radiant white, three-dimensional, made of light, seated on a lotus, sun and moon, in the Vajra posture, covered in silks that float and hover an inch from her body. Her right hand down, her left hand at her heart, holding the stem of an Utpala flower. In the prime of radiant youth, full of vitality, with 6 eyes. The 3 on her face, having achieved the realization of the 3 doors of liberation: emptiness, signlessness, wishlessness. Those on her hands and feet, love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. So imagine her very present with this person you're doing the practice for. You then visualize beams of white nectar entering the crown of their head, totally filling their body, purifying all their defilements and negative karmas, their sickness, and the threat of untimely death. And hold that awareness while adding the mantra. We'll do the White Tara mantra 21 times, and you can continue with that or else simplify to the regular Tara mantra. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtum Kuri Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtum Kuri Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtim Kuru Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Aya Punyanjana Pushtam Kuri Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Aya Punyanjana Pushtam Kuri Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Aya Punyanjana Pushtam Kuri Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtum Kuru Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtum Kuru Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtum Kuru Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtum Kuru Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtum Kuru Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtum Kuru Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Aya Punyanjana Pushtum Kuru Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Aya Punyanjana Pushtum Kuru Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Aya Punyanjana Pushtum Kuru Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtum Kuru Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtum Kuru Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtum Kuru Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtum Kuru Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtum Kuru Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Ayu Punyanjana Pushtum Kuru Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Aya Punyanjana Pushtim Kuru Soha. Continuing the mantra under your breath, together with the beams of white nectar light entering their crown, filling their body, purifying their defilements, negative karma, sickness, and threat of untimely death. Om Tare Tutare Ture Mama Aya Punya Jana Pushtam Kuru Soha. Then when you finish the mantra recitation, really feel that their body is filled with white nectar light, like milk from white Tara. And envision they've achieved all of Tara's qualities: perfect power, the ability to benefit sentient beings, great compassion, and especially immortality. In other words, complete Buddhahood. Imagine those seeds. Even though you're just a condition, never underestimate what a powerful condition we can be. And Tara dissolves into light and absorbs into them, stabilizing the blessing. And then we dedicate. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of our merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May we be a protector for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge, for those who wish to cross the flood. May we be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, and for the boundless multitudes of living beings, may we bring sustenance and awakening, enduring like the earth and sky, until all beings are freed from sorrow and all are awakened. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may we too remain, to dispel the miseries of the world. Remembering emptiness. Okay, so you can relax your attention. So we'll be doing Tara practice as a retreat, not this weekend, but the next weekend. So if anybody is local, you're very welcome to come. And if you're not local, you're very welcome to come online. So all those details are on the Vajrapani website. It'll be half green Tara, half white Tara. So similar to our wisdom and compassion retreat, where it was half Chenrezig, half Manjushri. And that compassion and wisdom retreat is pretty much all uploaded onto YouTube now. So if you wanted any of those sessions, again, they're all available for free. Do you have any questions or thoughts?
This is not necessarily on topic, but it's something that I'll ask you, and if you can answer it, I'd be grateful. So for a long, long time, most of my time with Dharma was spent in sadhanas and studying Dharma. And then it changed. And now a lot of my time is in supporting the center and in working with a lot of people. And some not so easy to work with, including me. So I'm kind of wondering, like Milarepa, I think of Milarepa, by practice. So what's this like, practicing Dharma, studying Dharma, what's the difference? And they're both part of the path. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's all practice if you make it practice, and it's not necessarily practice just because it looks like it. Okay. So it's like the sadhana could just be, reciting nice words without connecting to them, or it could be connecting deeply to them. So, sadhana practice isn't necessarily practice unless you're deeply engaged and, really connecting with it. Service can be the best practice there is in terms of purifying the mind, in terms of generating huge amounts of merit, but only if you don't live on the surface of it and get swept up in the chaos of the everyday hustle and bustle. You have to choose to make it practice. So it's either way, it's all to the good if you decide to make it so. And I think sometimes when we're in the position of having to offer service and we have less time on our cushion, we could start to look down on service, like it's not as important as the work that we do on the cushion. But it's not an either or, it's kind of like the more you're out in the world and engaging with people and all of their drama and all of your drama and all of your, expectations and, all of the things that are disappointing about other people, it really shows you where the gaps in your practice are. So then when you go back to your cushion, you know what to emphasize. So it's a huge gift to be thrust in amongst people again, if you've not had such a busy life for a while. It's just also aggravating because you probably miss your peace. But actually, it could be the very thing that gives you new life for your practice. So, I personally, I feel like life goes in chapters, sort of study, meditate, offer service, study, meditate, offer service. And all chapters have all of those, but a different one is emphasized, so it's kind of like I'm in a service chapter of my life. My service is teaching and helping Dharma centers. I don't want that to be the continuous chapter forever. I might have some retreat emphasis more and then teaching less. I might go back to studying more and then teaching, meditating less, but all three are enriching the practice. And I think it's really understanding pacing. And I think it's important to never feel like your life is taking you away from your practice. Your life is your practice. And if for some reason the things in your life are too hard to take on the path, then something's got to give and life needs to change. But, that's a rare case. Pretty much anything can be taken on the path to transformation. And there's the classic quote that gets quoted at Dharma centers all the time for people who are offering service, which is apparently from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, where he apparently said that offering service for a Dharma center for 1 year is the same amount of merit and purification as doing a 3-year retreat, because it's so much harder.
Yeah,
so much harder.
That makes sense totally.
And working in general, but working for Dharma Center, because you all have such incredibly strong karmic connection with each other, good and bad, over countless lifetimes. It's kind of like volatile in a way that you don't expect from nice, friendly people who are practicing. You're like, these are all Dharma people. Why are they so?
I know. That's what I think. I thought they were going to be better. I thought it was going to all be better, and it's all like a fire.
Right. Totally. And it's remembering too that if you're with other people who are practicing, we have so much pride and we have so much ego, and then we have so much like self-loathing and so much defensiveness that if we're also on a spiritual path, then that's going to get all tangled in with it, and we're going to start feeling like we're not living up to our ideals. And then if we're around other people with those ideals, that they're going to notice. And so it makes you defensive, and it makes you demanding, and it makes you unbearable to be around. And, this is what happens in all religious communities, not just Buddhist ones, where the ideals themselves put a kind of pressure on you to perform or live up to it, if your pride is at all engaged. So sometimes, if you were just working for a regular nonprofit, it'd be a lot easier and friendlier. Or if you were just like working at McDonald's, you'd all have a great time, just laugh and muck about. But it's a Dharma center. So it's like there's this extra pressure to be something or to do something in amongst your service. And that can actually bring out the worst in people. So I think that if you're aware that people have their beautiful Dharma practice and then they have all of their feelings of not living up to it, and that either triggers some sort of aggressiveness or some sort of depression, or all that can trigger all sorts of weird stuff when they're with other Dharma people, it'll make you softer with them, and gentler with them and more patient with them, because that they're struggling against their own best intentions and hating that they don't live up to them. Does it make sense?
Well, listening to you helps me understand a lot of the dynamics I currently experience, not only with other people, but myself. Sometimes the worst things in me come out and I go, like, I don't do that in other places with other people. Why am I doing it with my Dharma sisters and brothers? I'm like, this is like, someone said, when you step in the guru's mandala, everything heats up. And it does sort of feel like that, which is the opposite. I thought it was going to be peaceful and like, oh, I'm working Dharma. Like, the opposite.
I mean, it's worse, but that makes right.
What?
I mean, it's worse than you expected it to be, but actually that makes the practice better if you can keep your sense of humor and you can keep objectivity, and detached, not disengaged, right? Like, offering service to a Dharma center is one of the most profoundly powerful things you can do. It's one of the best things that you can do karmically, and it is so fraught. So if you can really think, this is an amazing, rare chance to practice and to offer service to sentient beings and to create the cause to meet the teachings again and again and again, it's amazing how precious it is. And all of your stuff's going to come up. It's almost like a healing crisis. Like you've stepped into this purifying environment and now all of your latent crap is just coming out, where it was just sitting quietly before and not causing.
That's right.
It was just sitting. It was like you were perfectly polite and good to go. Yeah.
Like, where'd that come from? Like, whoa, I thought I was done with that. No.
You'll get unexpected illness, or you'll get unexpected weird. Yeah. Anyway, weird stuff happens. So keep your sense of humor, keep objectivity. And
I'm going to listen to this talk again. Thank you.
Yeah. Then in the chat is offering service to an abbey or monastery much more powerful than offering service to a Dharma center. It depends on the, collection of people that you're offering service to. So theoretically, offering service to people with more vows is more merit, theoretically. But lots of people at Dharma centers have bodhisattva vows and tantric vows, even if they don't have monastic vows. So, I think offering service is great. Just do it where it makes sense. Yeah, and don't overthink who it is you're offering service to. If it's for the Dharma, it's amazing. Yeah, because it's like Lama Zopa always saying, like, it's like Dharma centers are a hospital for the mind. And we're all really a bit unwell. Even if we're totally functional and relatively happy, we're also a bit unwell. And so these Dharma centers are so precious. And you notice in the degenerate age, it's harder to keep them going. And it takes a lot of people power. So anyway, I'm rejoicing, and be patient with yourself. Be patient with other sentient beings. They're going to be troublemakers. Bless them. And thank you all for your service. I know quite a few of you offer service to Dharma centers. Thank you so much, you guys. Really amazing. Yeah. Okay, well, I'll see you on Tuesday. Have a good night.